I grew up in a home where family meant everything. We weren't rich, but we were bound by tradition, by the belief that in life's milestones, weddings, births, celebrations, everyone contributed. In our culture, guests didn't bring toasters or photo frames. They brought envelopes thick with money, heirloom bangles, chains of gold. These were more than gifts. They were blessings, a foundation for a new couple's future. As a little girl, I'd watch brides beam as their families handed over card boxes, overflowing with envelopes. Jewelry chests so heavy they needed a man to lift them. Those brides stepped into married life, knowing they were loved, supported, secure. I dreamed of that day for myself, not for greed, but for the reassurance it represented. When I met my husband, I thought I had found everything I needed. He was kind, soft-spoken, and quick to defend his family, especially his mother. She was a woman everyone respected, sharp, commanding, always immaculately dressed. But behind her polite smile, I felt something colder, a hunger. I remember once, at a cousin's wedding, she lingered too long near the gift table. Later, I saw her slip a bracelet into her purse, laughing it off as though it were nothing. No one questioned her. Who would dare? She was the matriarch, the keeper of appearances. When he proposed, I pushed those uneasy thoughts aside. I wanted to believe she would love me as her own daughter. I wanted to trust that my marriage would be welcomed, not resented. But still, a whisper of dread followed me. In quiet moments, I imagined her hands clutching at things that didn't belong to her, her smile hiding secrets only she knew. On the eve of my wedding, as my family prepared for the 600 guests and the tide of blessings they would bring, I confided in my husband. "Your mother will try to take it," I said quietly. "The card box, the gold, everything." He frowned, dismissing my fears. She wouldn't do that. But deep down, I knew. And soon, I would be proven right. The wedding day was a blur of colors, music, and faces. 600 guests filling the hall with laughter, blessings, and the shimmer of tradition. Gold bangles slid onto my wrists, chains draped around my neck. Envelopes slipped discreetly into the card box with warm hugs and whispered prayers. Every gesture felt like a piece of our future being built before my eyes. I should have been floating, basking in the joy of it all. But a weight pressed on my chest. Each time, another guest leaned over the table to drop an envelope. I noticed my mother-in-law's sharp gaze flicker there. She was restless, circling like a hawk, her smile stretched wide. As the night drew on, I saw her move closer to the gifts. At first, it seemed innocent, checking on things, adjusting the tablecloth. But then, her hand slipped into her purse and came out with a small brass lock. In a single motion, quick as a magician, she swapped it with the one on the card box. My stomach dropped. Later, as guests lingered on the dance floor, she made her move. "It's not safe to leave these here," she announced, already calling two of her relatives to lift the card box and chest. "Hotels are full of staff, we don't know. I'll take them home." I froze. This was the moment I'd feared. My husband's face went pale, but he said nothing. Around us, no one questioned her. After all, who would argue with the matriarch? "Don't worry," she said smoothly, patting my arm as though I were a child. "I'll keep everything safe." Safe, the word rang hollow. As the boxes disappeared into the night with her, I felt the celebration slip through my fingers. The laughter, the dancing, the blessings, suddenly all of it felt like a performance. A cover for what had just been stolen. I smiled through the rest of the evening, but inside, a storm brewed. Because I knew the real theft had already begun. When we returned from our honeymoon, the glow of celebration still lingered. I imagined untying satin ribbons, opening envelopes, and counting blessings written in golden paper. I imagined sitting with my husband, laughing over the generosity of our family, dreaming of what we might build with this foundation. But when we arrived at his parents' house, my mother-in-law greeted us with her usual crisp smile. "Here you go," she said, sliding the card box and gift chest across the polished floor. Both looked untouched, the locks intact. She didn't linger, didn't even wait for us to open them. She simply turned and walked away. At first, everything seemed fine. The envelopes were neatly stacked, the jewelry carefully arranged. But the deeper we went, the clearer it became. We had 600 guests. At a modest average of $100 each, we should have had a small fortune. Instead, what lay before us was barely a fraction of that, not even 1/8. The gold was worse, a few trinkets, a handful of chains, but nothing like the wealth that had been pressed into my palms on the wedding day. My husband's face crumpled. Maybe some people gave less, he whispered, trying to convince himself. But when he pulled a card from the pile, his voice broke. It was from one of our uncles, a note, clearly written to accompany a $5,000 gift. The envelope was empty. Tears filled his eyes. He sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. "You were right," he choked out. "You told me, and I didn't listen." I sat frozen, staring at the hollow remains of what should have been our future. My chest burned with rage, but there was no proof. She had given us back sealed boxes. To the rest of the family, she had done her duty. If I spoke now, I would look paranoid, ungrateful, destructive. So I swallowed my fury, burying it deep where no one could see. But in that silence, something inside me hardened, because I knew this wasn't over. Life after the wedding should have been sweet, settling into routines, building dreams brick by brick. But instead, every day felt like living in a house built on sand. We never spoke about the missing gifts with anyone. Without proof, how could we? My husband avoided the subject entirely, carrying his shame in silence. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he would shake his head. "It will destroy the family," he'd whisper. "Please, let it go." But how could I let it go when the evidence danced before my eyes? Barely a month after the wedding, my mother-in-law appeared at a gathering, in a new gold set heavy, bangles that looked unnervingly familiar. She waved them carelessly as she served tea, laughing with relatives about how she'd been blessed lately. I sat across the room, my stomach twisting, certain that those bangles had been mine. Then there was the sudden generosity. She began presenting lavish gifts at other family functions. Envelopes fat with cash, jewelry that turned heads. She explained it away as savings or old family gold. But I knew better. I watched the smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. Each time someone praised her. At night, I lay awake, my mind replaying the moment she carried our gift boxes away. Every laugh, every sparkle on her wrists, was a reminder that our future had been stolen. Still, I said nothing. Speaking without proof would only paint me as bitter, a jealous wife stirring trouble. And she knew it. She walked around with the confidence of someone untouchable, the matriarch whose word carried weight. But I didn't stop watching. I started to notice patterns: how she positioned herself near valuables at gatherings, how people lowered their voices when she entered the room, how even her daughters avoided her sharp gaze. She thought she had silenced me. What she didn't realize was that I was already keeping score. It was at a cousin's engagement party that the first whisper reached me. I was pouring juice for the children when the aunts chuckled in the corner. "Careful with your envelopes," one said slyly. "Your sister-in-law's mother has lucky hands." They laughed, but the words clung to me like smoke. I turned, my glass trembling, but they had already shifted the conversation. Later, at another gathering, my husband's younger sister muttered under her breath, "Mum always takes charge of the gifts. We never see what actually comes in," she said it bitterly, with a resentment that seemed long-fed. When I tried to ask more, she shook her head and changed the subject, her eyes darting toward the older woman like a warning. Piece by piece, a pattern emerged. An uncle joked that his wife's wedding paid for half of Vivian's jewelry collection. A cousin sighed about mysterious disappearances from his son's akika. None of it was said openly, always couched in laughter or bitterness, always softened by culture's insistence on silence. But silence is louder when you know what to listen for. Each comment confirmed what I had already suspected. This wasn't a single theft. This was her way. She had been doing it for years, under everyone's nose, shielded by respect and fear. That night, lying awake, I asked my husband directly, "Have you ever wondered if your siblings had things stolen too?" He shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Don't start this," he muttered. "We can't prove anything." But his voice cracked. He knew. Somewhere deep down, he had always known. I stared at him in the dark, my chest tight. I wasn't only angry for us anymore. I was angry for all of them. For the years of stolen beginnings, the future she had dimmed to brighten her own. She had built her reputation on theft disguised as protection. And I promised myself, one day, that truth would surface. 2 years into our marriage, joy returned to our home. My son was born a tiny miracle swaddled in white. his cries filling me with both exhaustion and wonder. In our culture, a birth is almost as celebrated as a wedding. Relatives and friends arrived with envelopes, gold chains, bracelets, anklets, tokens of love for the child who had just entered the world. The gifts piled high into ornate boxes. I watched them anxiously, heart racing as each guest leaned forward to drop their blessing inside. My happiness warred with dread, because I already knew how this story ended. And right on cue, my mother-in-law appeared, her voice brisk, authoritative. "Leave it to me. The hotel isn't safe. I'll keep the gifts until after the celebrations." My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to snatch the boxes and hold them against me. But my husband, tired, emotional, holding our newborn, only nodded. "Yes, Mom, thank you." I bit my tongue so hard it drew blood. After the party, when she handed the boxes back, I didn't even need to open them to know. The weight was wrong. The clink of gold was muted. When I finally sat down to count, my hands trembled. It was worse than our wedding. Where there should have been dozens of envelopes, there were a handful. Where relatives had promised heirlooms, only trinkets remained. My son's future, stolen before it had even begun. The final crack came a week later. A cousin called to ask if we liked the diamond bracelet she and her husband had given for the baby. I froze. Bracelet? I asked. We never received one. Silence fell heavy on the line before she muttered, "Of course you didn't." My blood ran cold. That night, as I rocked my baby to sleep, I whispered a promise into the darkness. "You will not grow up in the shadow of her greed. One day, the truth will come to light." I didn't know when. I didn't know how. But I knew the storm was coming. The silence between my husband and me grew heavier with each passing day. Every time I tried to speak about the missing gifts, our wedding, our son's birth, he shut me down. "We don't have proof," he said, his voice tired, almost pleading. "If we accuse her without evidence, it will destroy the family. Don't you see?" I snapped one night, my voice trembling. She already destroyed it. She robbed her own son, her own grandson. She took from us, and she kept doing it because no one dares stop her. His face crumpled. For a moment, I thought he would agree, that he would finally confront her. But instead, he whispered, "She's still my mother." The words cut deeper than any blade. I stopped arguing, but I didn't stop watching. I began documenting everything. Photographs of gifts promised but never received. Receipts that didn't add up. Overheard snippets of conversations. I wrote it all down in a notebook hidden under my mattress. One evening, as I passed the kitchen, I heard her voice low, urgent, almost hissing. She was on the phone, and though I couldn't catch every word, one phrase lodged itself in my chest. "He'll never know." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. Who was she talking about? My husband? My father-in-law? Me? When she hung up, she glided past me with her usual polished smile, as if she hadn't just betrayed herself. That night, as I lay beside my sleeping husband, I stared into the dark ceiling and realized something undeniable. This was bigger than missing gifts. This was a pattern, a sickness, a life built on secrets and theft. And one day, the mask would slip. I didn't know when. I didn't know what would break her throne. But I knew truth has a way of clawing to the surface. And when it came, I would be ready. It happened on a rainy afternoon, 2 years after our wedding. We had flown back to visit his family, our son toddling between our legs. When the announcement hit like thunder, my father-in-law had filed for divorce. Whispers swirled through the house. No one dared say it out loud, but the bitterness in his eyes told the story. He was done protecting her. That evening, as we sat in the living room, my younger sister-in-law shifted nervously on the sofa. She leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "Dad told me something about the wedding." My heart stopped. Across the room, my father-in-law sat slumped in his chair, a glass of tea untouched in his hand. His eyes were red, not from drink, but from years of swallowed rage. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse, almost broken. "Your mother," he said, looking at my husband, "took everything. The gold, the envelopes. She emptied your card box the night of your wedding." The words hung heavy in the air. I gripped the armrest, my breath caught in my throat. My husband's face drained of colour. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "That can't be true." But his father pressed on, the dam broken. I watched her. I begged her to stop. But she said it was for the family, for her control. She even took from your son's birth celebration. The gold chains, the envelopes, it's all gone. My chest burned. Every suspicion, every sleepless night, every argument replayed in my mind. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't bitter. I was right. I turned to my husband, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. His hands trembled as he buried his face in them. He had spent years defending her, and now the truth shattered him. My father-in-law leaned back, his voice soft, almost defeated. She's been doing it for years. You weren't her first. You won't be her last. For the first time in 2 years, I felt the weight lift. Not because the gold was returned, it never would be, but because, finally, I wasn't crazy. Finally, the truth had claws. That night, I lay awake, the storm of words replaying over and over in my mind. She took everything. She even stole from your son. My father-in-law's confession echoed like a bell tolling the death of silence. For 2 years, I had lived in the shadow of doubt. For 2 years, I had been told to swallow my anger, to stay quiet, to keep peace. I had questioned myself endlessly. Was I being unfair? Was I imagining things? Now I knew. I had been right all along. Relief washed through me first, a fierce vindication that lit every corner of my soul. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't bitter. I was a woman robbed, silenced, and ignored. But relief quickly gave way to rage. Because I realized then that the theft hadn't only been about greed. It had been a strategy. By stealing from us, my mother-in-law had ensured we remained dependent on the family, tied to her power. Without the foundation we should have had from our wedding and our son's birth. Every step forward had been harder, every dream delayed, every plan suffocated. She hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen security, dignity, independence. And worst of all, she had stolen peace between me and my husband. For 2 years, I had fought with him, begged him to see, only to be gaslit by silence and loyalty to a woman who had betrayed him too. I looked at him now, broken by the truth, and a part of me ached for him. But another part, the sharper part, thought coldly, you chose her silence over my voice. And we both paid the price. The next morning, I pulled my notebook from its hiding place beneath my clothes. Every note, every overheard word, every piece of evidence I had collected lay there like ammunition. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. And now, with the truth in my hands, I was no longer afraid. I asked her to meet me alone. No siblings, no husband, no father-in-law, just the two of us in her ornate sitting room, where the curtains always smell faintly of dust and mothballs. Despite her obsession with appearances, she arrived in layers of silk and gold, her chin tilted high, eyes sharp as blades. I don't know why you insisted on this, she said coolly, settling into her chair like a queen awaiting tribute. I placed my notebook on the table between us. Slowly, deliberately, I opened it, photographs, receipts, names, quotes scrawled in my handwriting. Her smirk wavered, just for a second. You didn't just take our wedding gifts, I said, my voice low and steady. You stole my son's too. You stole from your own family. And you thought no one would ever know. She lifted her chin. Careful what you accuse me of. Words can destroy a family. I leaned closer, my gaze unwavering. You already destroyed it. For the first time, she flinched. Not much, but enough. I pressed on. This was never about money. It was about control. You made sure we started our marriage with nothing, so you could hold power over us. But that power is gone. Your husband knows. Your children know. And now so do I. Her fingers tightened around the armrest. For a moment, I thought she might lash out, speak venom. But instead, she sat in silence, her empire of secrets collapsing around her. I stood, gathering my notebook. You didn't just steal gold, I said softly, almost kindly. You stole trust, and that's something you'll never get back. As I walked out, I felt the weight lift. She could keep her stolen riches locked away in whatever safe she pleased. She could drown herself in bangles and silk. But she was alone now, exposed, disgraced, powerless. And me, I hadn't just survived her theft. I had survived her.